My girlfriend and I had been planning this camping trip for weeks. We needed it. Life had been loud, busy, and exhausting, and all we wanted was 2 days of silence, fresh air, and a fire under an open sky. So in the summer of 2021, we loaded up the car, pointed ourselves toward Boysen Reservoir in Wyoming, and left everything behind. If you've never been to Boysen, let me paint you a picture. It's massive, remote, the kind of place where you can drive for 20 minutes without seeing another human being. The reservoir itself is stunning, wide open water surrounded by dry, rugged terrain that stretches out in every direction. It doesn't look like much on a map, but when you're standing there in person, it swallows you whole. We arrived in the early afternoon and immediately started scouting for a campsite. That's one of the things I love about places like this. No assigned plots, no reservation numbers, no neighbors 10 feet away from you. You just find a spot that speaks to you, and you make it yours. And we found one. Right on the beachfront. A flat stretch of sandy ground sitting right at the edge of the water, completely secluded, completely quiet. There were no other campers anywhere nearby. No roads cutting directly through, just us, the water, and about 100 miles of open Wyoming wilderness behind us. My girlfriend looked at me and said, "This is perfect." I agreed. We set up camp, got the fire going, cooked dinner as the sun melted into the horizon, and just exhaled. For the first time in months, everything felt still. The water barely moved. The sky went from orange to purple to a deep, endless black. Out there, away from any town or highway, the darkness was complete. Not city darkness, not suburb darkness. I mean the kind of darkness where you hold your hand in front of your face and genuinely cannot see it. We sat by the fire, talking quietly, enjoying the silence. That's when we heard it. Tires on gravel. I turned toward the sound and saw headlights cutting through the darkness from the direction of the access road. I figured it was another camper, rolling in late, looking for a spot. It happened, no big deal. But then the vehicle got closer, and something about it made me go quiet. It was an SUV. Large, dark-colored, and the windows, every single one of them, were blacked out completely. Not tinted, blacked out. You couldn't see anything inside. Not a silhouette, not a shadow, nothing. It rolled into our campsite slowly, not near it, into it. It came right up to the edge of our setup, close enough that the headlights swept across our tent, and just stopped. I stood up. My girlfriend grabbed my arm. I raised a hand in a wave, the universal gesture of, "Hey, you've made a mistake. This spot is taken." Nothing. No window rolled down. No horn. No movement at all. The SUV just sat there, engine running, lights on, completely still. I called out, "Hey, this is our campsite." No response. Then, without any acknowledgement, it started moving again. Slowly. It drove right past us, down toward the beach, and stopped at the waterline. We stood there watching it. Neither of us spoke. My heart was doing something it had no business doing on a camping trip. The SUV just sat at the edge of the water, engine still running, for what felt like 4 or 5 minutes. Just sitting there, facing the water, doing nothing. And then it left. Same way it came in. Slow, silent, back up the access road and into the dark. My girlfriend turned to me. Her face said everything neither of us wanted to say out loud. "We need to leave," she said. I didn't argue. Here's the thing about instincts. They don't always come with explanations. Something in my body had already made the decision before my brain caught up. My hands were moving before I even realized I was packing. We broke down the tent, threw everything into the car, and were ready to go within minutes. I started the engine, and that's when the headlights appeared again at the top of the access road. The same SUV. It wasn't looking for a campsite. It came back. I didn't wait to find out why. I pulled out fast and hit the road heading away from the reservoir. The access roads out there aren't smooth. They're rough, uneven, full of dips and turns, and in complete darkness, they're genuinely dangerous. I pushed through anyway. The SUV came after us. Not slowly this time. I watched the headlights in my rearview mirror close the distance faster than they should have on roads like those. My girlfriend had her hand braced against the dashboard. I kept my eyes split between the road ahead and the mirror behind. Every time I gained a little ground, the lights would surge forward again. We hit a canyon stretch, narrow, winding, unlit, and I pushed through it as fast as I dared. The terrain worked in our favor there. The road curved and dipped in ways that swallowed our taillights from view. When we came out the other side, I looked in the mirror. Nothing. Just darkness. We drove for another 30 minutes without stopping, without speaking, until we hit a main road with streetlights and other cars. Only then did my girlfriend let out a breath she'd been holding for what felt like miles. We never went back to Boyson. And I still don't know who was in that SUV. I don't know what they were looking for at the waterline. I don't know if someone had been dropped off in the dark while we were distracted. What I do know is that we listened to that feeling, that quiet, creeping certainty that something was wrong, and it got us home safe. Not everyone ignores their instincts and lives to talk about it. There's something about getting completely away from people, no signal, no notifications, no noise, that resets something in me. So when I finally had a long weekend with nowhere to be, I threw my camping gear in the truck and drove out to a remote valley I'd heard about from a coworker. No campgrounds, no facilities, no cell service past the first mile in. Perfect. The drive-in was long and beautiful, rolling hills, a river running alongside the road, trees thickening as I went deeper. By the time I found a clearing that felt right, I was already calmer than I'd been in months. I set up my gear, built a small fire, and just sat there, breathing. That's when I met him. Just before sunset, a truck rumbled past and slowed when the driver spotted me. He was a local, friendly, weathered, the kind of guy who'd lived in places like this his whole life. He asked where I was planning to sleep. When I pointed to my spot, he shook his head with a small smile and told me he knew a better one. He drove me, led me, down a short trail to a campsite tucked right beside the river, completely hidden from the road by a natural wall of trees and brush. Beautiful. Private. The sound of the water was incredible. He told me the spot was safe, wished me a good night, and left. I spent the evening exactly the way I'd planned. Fire going, a few drinks, music playing from my truck speakers, loud enough to enjoy. Loud enough, I told myself, to keep animals at a distance. As midnight approached and the cold started biting harder, I made the decision to skip the tent and sleep in the truck cab instead. More comfortable, more protected. I killed the music, banked the fire, climbed in, locked the doors, and was asleep within minutes. I woke up when sunlight hit the windshield. The morning was gorgeous, still, golden. Cold in the good way, I climbed out, got my camp stove going, started on breakfast. The river was murmuring beside me. Birds were doing their thing in the trees. Everything was exactly what a solo camping morning is supposed to be. I was cracking eggs into the pan when I felt it. That particular stillness. The kind that doesn't come from peace. I looked up slowly. He was standing at the edge of the tree line. A man, maybe 50 yards away, right where the brush met the open clearing. He wasn't moving. He was just standing there, watching me. My first thought was that it was the local from the night before, coming to check in. But no, this man was different. His clothes were wrong, layered and mismatched, covered in strips and pieces of plastic bags wrapped around his arms, his legs, his torso. His hair was matted. His face was expressionless. I raised a hand. Hey. Good morning. Nothing. No wave, no nod, no acknowledgement that I'd spoken at all. He started moving, not toward me directly, around me. He began circling the campsite at that same 50-yard distance, slow and deliberate, like he was studying it. Or me. His eyes, the few times I caught them, weren't quite focused. Not on anything in particular. Just open and drifting. I set the pan down and stood up fully. Hey, can I help you with something? Still nothing. He kept walking his slow circle. Unhurried. Unresponsive. I became aware very suddenly of how far I was from the road, how thick the trees were, and how the river sound that had felt peaceful 10 minutes ago now meant that no one would hear anything coming from this clearing. I moved to my truck and retrieved two things: my bear spray and my knife. I held the bear spray visibly, where he could see it. He didn't react. He completed one full circle of the camp and started another. That was enough. I need you to leave, I said, loud and steady. Right now. I'm not asking again. Nothing. He just kept walking. I stepped forward, directly toward him, closing the distance. Not running, just moving with enough intention that the message was clear. He stopped. For a moment, we just looked at each other across the clearing. Then, without a word, without any change in expression, he turned and walked back into the trees. Slowly, like he had somewhere else to be and had simply run out of interest in me. I waited. Watched the tree line. Nothing came back out. I thought about the night before. About how long I'd been in that clearing before I fell asleep. About the music that had been playing, and the fire that had been lit, advertising exactly where I was to anyone in the trees. Had he been out there last night, watching the truck, watching me through the windshield while I slept? I packed up in under 10 minutes. I didn't eat breakfast. I didn't take a last look at the river. I got in the truck, backed up the trail, and didn't exhale until I hit the main road and felt asphalt under the tires again. I think about the tent constantly. I'd almost set it up, almost slept in it. Thin fabric walls and a zipper between me and whatever that man was, or whatever he wanted. Sleeping in the truck was the best decision I've ever made. I didn't realize that until the morning after. I was 18, maybe 19 at the time. That age where you feel invincible in the specific way that hasn't been corrected yet by anything real. My girlfriend and I had decided to do a road trip through Oregon, no hard itinerary, no rush, just stopping wherever looked interesting and moving on when we felt like it. The freedom of it felt enormous. We had a tent, a cooler, a full tank of gas, and nowhere we had to be. Somewhere along the way, someone recommended Ludlam Campground. I don't remember exactly who mentioned it, a gas station attendant, maybe, or someone at a diner. The details around it are fuzzy the way details around ordinary moments tend to be. What I remember is that it was described as quiet and scenic. Good for a night, easy to find. We pulled off the highway in the late afternoon with a couple hours of daylight left, plenty of time to set up camp, get a fire going, and settle in. The entrance looked normal. A gravel road, some signage, the kind of low wooden posts and fencing you see at 100 campgrounds across the Pacific Northwest. My girlfriend had the window down, arm resting on the door, looking relaxed. I was watching for the check-in point. We turned a corner, and I stopped the car. I didn't do it consciously. My foot just came off the gas and found the brake on its own. The way it does when something in front of you doesn't make sense yet, and your brain needs a second to process it. The campground was gone. That's the only way I know how to describe it. The actual campground, the official sites, the maintained grounds, the picnic tables, was buried. Completely overtaken. What stretched out in front of us looked less like a camping facility, and more like a settlement that had grown over it. Vans and old trucks were parked at every angle, not in any site or organized space, just wherever they'd stopped. Tarps had been strung between trees, between vehicles, draped over frames made of whatever was available. Cheap, battered tents were set up in clusters, some touching each other, some collapsed halfway, far more than the campground could have ever officially accommodated. There was a fire somewhere deeper in. Smoke drifted up through the trees, something on the air that I couldn't name. My girlfriend sat up straight beside me. "What is this?" I didn't have an answer. And then the people noticed us. I don't know how many there were. 8, maybe 10 visible from where we'd stopped. Some were standing near the vehicles, some were near fires or around makeshift seating. But the moment our SUV came around that corner, heads turned. Every one of them, at the same moment, oriented toward us. And they started walking in our direction. No one said anything. No one waved. No one raised a hand or called out a greeting. They just started moving toward us in that loose, uncoordinated way that somehow felt more coordinated than if they'd been organized. Unhurried. Together. Quiet. I put the car in reverse. My girlfriend said, "Go." I went. I backed out faster than I should have on a gravel road, cut the wheel hard at the entrance, and got us pointed toward the highway. The campground disappeared behind the tree line within seconds, but I watched the mirror anyway. Some of them had followed us to the entrance, not all of them. 3 or 4, maybe. They stood at the edge of the gravel where it met the road and watched us pull away. Nobody ran, nobody shouted, they just watched. That silence was the part that stayed with me. You expect something from people: a shout, a gesture, an explanation, anger or confusion, or even just a question. Something, but there was nothing. Just watching, just following to the tree line and standing there. We drove to the next town, found a motel, and paid for a room without discussing it much. We both just knew. I found out later, years after, that Ludlam campground had eventually been cleaned up. Authorities came in, the encampment was cleared, and the place was restored to what it was supposed to be. People have reviewed it since then as peaceful, pretty, perfectly normal, I don't doubt that. But I've never gone back. And every time I see a gravel road curving into trees with a campground sign at the entrance, there's a half second where my foot hesitates over the gas before I remind myself that most corners don't have anything waiting around them. Most of them.
If you thought that story was disturbing, wait until you hear what happened in this next one. Click the video on your screen now, and make sure you subscribe, because the next story might be even worse.